In the year 1684, the Vatican removed 14 books from the Bible.
All right, let's see it.
There were originally 80 books in the Bible when it was translated from Latin to English back in 1611.
So, bunch of problems here. To begin, there was no original 80-book canon. There were several different canons that developed within early Christianity, and the Catholic canon was originally 73 books and is still to this day 73 books, because absolutely nothing whatsoever changed in 1684 or in any other year regarding the Catholic canon. That's all just made up. But also, 1611 is when the King James Version was published, and that is not a Catholic translation of the Bible, nor was it translated from Latin into English. It's just a light revision of the Bishop's Bible, which comes from a long line of revisions that goes back to Tyndale's New Testament, and then the Tyndale and Coverdale Hebrew Bible. So none of this is accurate.
These days there are only 66. The missing books are known as the apocrypha, which in Greek means hidden.
So the 66-book canon is the Protestant canon, but it was not always the Protestant canon. See, the 73-book canon of the Catholic Church has what's called a deuterocanon, or a second canon, and that's what most Protestants call the apocrypha. It was considered to be on a second tier from the main books of the canon. Now, when Martin Luther published his translation of the Bible, he took these deuterocanonical books that were scattered throughout the Old Testament and the Catholic canon, and he grouped them all together and moved them into their own section. And so we had the Old Testament, we had the Apocrypha, and then we had the New Testament. So Protestants innovated this distinction of the Apocrypha from the other main corpora of the Bible. And for many years, Protestants continued to publish the Apocrypha with the Bible, and much like the Catholic canon, the Apocrypha was considered on a second tier, canonically speaking. Then in the 19th century, we had the American Bible Society and the British and Foreign Bible Society really step up their production and distribution of Bibles, and they decided to take the Apocrypha out to save on printing costs, to make it more efficient and more easy to print and distribute these Bibles. And that just became the de facto standard. And so after the 19th century, Protestant Bibles just decided, you know what, we're just going to omit the Apocrypha altogether. So that has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the Catholic Church, which still includes the Deuterocanon in its publications of the Bible.
The missing books include Esdras, Tobit, Judith, the Wisdom of Solomon, the Songs of the Three Holy Children, Bel and the Dragon, Maccabees, and the Prayer for Manasseh.
So Esdras and the Prayer of Manasseh were never part of the Catholic canon. They were and still are part of the Eastern Orthodox canon. And the Songs of the Three Holy Children and Bel and the Dragon are not separate books of the Apocrypha. They're actually stories within the additions to Daniel. And then all the other texts are part of the Catholic Deuterocanon and remain so to this day.
Even stranger is that Jesus' name was spelled Aesus before these 14 books were removed.
So again, these books were not removed from the Catholic canon, and the Apocrypha was not removed from the Protestant canon until the 19th century. But the J would become established as a letter within the Latin script in the 17th century and would have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with the removal of any books from the Bible.
Some say the contents of the books didn't fit in with the Roman Catholic Church's narrative, so they were removed. But there is no real answer.
So again, not a single one of these books was ever removed from the Catholic canon, and 2 of them were never a part of the Catholic canon. But there may be some truth to the idea that Protestants grew to dislike the Apocrypha because part of it may not have fit their narrative. Some people claim that Martin Luther did not like a story in 2 Maccabees 12 because it seemed to support the doctrine of purgatory. There's a story about Judas Maccabeus coming upon a bunch of his soldiers who have been killed, and they have pagan idols on their persons, and so Judas passes around the hat and sends money to the Jerusalem temple so sacrifices can be offered in their name in the hopes that they would receive a better resurrection, which seemed to conflict with the idea that once you were dead, your eternal fate was sealed. And so maybe that contributed to Protestants not liking the Apocrypha.
But for whatever reason, the Catholic Church chose to remove them from the Bible so that the Word of God was exactly what they wanted it to be.
So that's pure and utter nonsense and weirdly anti-Catholic to criticize the Vatican for something that Protestants did.